Hello everybody. Sorry I'm a bit late. It's a little bit noisy in my house today, so I was just hoping it would sort of quieten down a little bit, but I think that's about as long as I can wait before we can start. So yeah, I'll do my very best, but I cannot promise that little children will not come through in the live stream because it's probably going to happen, people. It's probably going to happen. Anyway, I haven't run this for about 2.5 months. I have added something new to this, so it's not the same old thing. There is a poll going up. Feel free to take part in that poll. I'm going to do a presentation. This presentation has had a lot more added to it, or I'd say there has been more added to it. I wouldn't know about a lot, but there's more added to it. We'll also be doing some practice, so we're actually getting you to do some stuff today. So we won't be just having me talk, okay? So grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable. My suggestion is if you have a piece of paper or a pen or a pencil close by, that would be a good idea. That's probably all you'll need. Otherwise, if you don't have those, then you'll just have to keep it in your brain for now. But anyway, let's get straight into this. This is a slideshow, and then part of the presentation is just me and a screenshot of my face. Okay? All right, so let's barrel into this, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about role-playing games. Now, the topic for today is not SpongeBob, okay? No, it's Game Master Preparation. This is Lesson 6, Learning to Improvise. I know there's a few of you out there that might be struggling with this. I'm sure there's plenty of you who have no trouble whatsoever, but this program is designed to help those of you who need additional tools or need assistance in learning this skill. There are new skills added to this every single time I run this if I can, so there will be some additional stuff. So my overview is improvising methods. Some of the methods we'll be covering are Rory's story cubes, plot twist cards, the random charts, plot points, no game preparation, what to improvise, and then we're going to cover all the other stuff that I haven't mentioned in the overview, okay? A lot of yes and yes, but, no but, 5-minute maps, 5-minute dungeons. There's a lot of different things we'll be covering. So I'm going to say alternative stuff. And some of that conversation has to be about artificial intelligence and a game master or dungeon master using artificial intelligence as an improvising tool at their table, because some of you are probably already doing this, and quite successfully, I'd imagine. So we'll discuss this topic. Objectives. I'm going to explain how to use the different methods in a role-playing game to improvise. I'm going to demonstrate them today as well. So this live stream is quite long. The presentation aspect will be reasonably quick, I hope, but then there will be a lot of demonstration and an opportunity for you to practice. I want you to be able to practice in the live stream, so I will give you exercises to do. Whether you decide to take part in them is completely up to you. You do not need to take part in them if you do not want to, but you can if you do. So the first thing we need to get into is let's go into our improvising methods. So the improvising methods I want to cover today, and I'll be doing most of my discussion around them. I've done this before. That's Rory's story cubes, plot twist cards, random charts. Random charts will also include not just random charts, but random generators, computer generated charts. And also we probably need to talk about things like ChatGPT, artificial intelligence to create artwork and various other things. We'll also be covering plot points, and then of course no preparation. And what you don't see here is all the other stuff I'll cover as well. Okay, let's say it's number 6, alternative methods, filling in the gaps. Okay, so let's start off with Rory's story cubes, one of my favorite tools to use. So Rory's story cubes, what you do is there's 9 of these things, but you roll a few of them and you use them to inspire a story idea quite quickly. It's really good for somebody who has a good imagination when it comes to using images and linking them together. If you're not an image person, it's probably not going to work for you. But if you do function like myself, who really finds that a picture is more useful than words, then this is the method for you. I first saw story cubes being used by Sly Flourish or Mike Shea to make a non-player character. He would roll 3 of these to determine personality traits and different aspects of that NPC on the fly. Now, this method is actually part of the game of Rory's Story Cubes. It actually has a section in there where you roll 4 of these to create a hero or a character to be part of the story that you will tell with these cubes. So it's actually, obviously Mike has appropriated that idea, and I think he presented this, it's got to be at least 12 years ago. It's a long time now. These 6-sided dice are covered with different pictures, and they offer different ideas. And the great thing about these cubes is that every single cube has a different picture on it. Like, no cube is the same. So that means you have 9 cubes, and if you roll all those cubes, well, 9 and 6, you have a lot of different images. So you've got a lot of play with this. Try playing the game. Like, I would suggest, if you're going to use Rory Story Cubes as a tool in your game for improvising, try playing the game with your family or friends before using the Story Cubes in your role-playing game session. It's always good to get a bit of practice in beforehand. Now, how do you do this? Well, really, all you do is roll 9 of the Story Cubes, which is basically all of them, and you start off going round in a circle or around the group, and you start with once upon a time, and then each person takes it in turn to link one of the cubes to the story that's going to be told. And then when you run out of cubes, you finish with the end. It's very, very simple. It is just a way of, I wouldn't call it Chinese whispers, but it's certainly a way of linking all of the different images together into some sort of coherent narrative. And that's a tool that you want. That's a skill that you want to pick up. And the more you practice, the better. One of the things that I did was I would practice this with my family, playing the game to help improve my skills. But you can also do it just before a game session or even after a game session. I think it's probably going to be better. As people are coming into the group, waiting for everybody to show up, it's probably a good idea to get out the story cubes and just get everybody to play that, just to start off with. This method requires some practice before applying it to a game session. So don't just try this a few times and then go straight into the game session and rely on them. It's probably not going to work. Now, you can buy the physical Rory Story Cubes or a knockoff, but there is also a phone application which you can download. It's not that expensive. That will give you access to these types of cubes as well. I practiced this skill with my family a few times before I decided to implement it into my game. I think the original Rory Story Cube box set is the best in my opinion, but there are a couple of different options out there, so you don't have to just use the original. Okay, you could use pretty much anything you wanted to. And that's Rory Story Cubes. Now, Rory Story Cubes can be used to generate anything, not just an NPC. You can I'm going to go over what you can do with Rory Story Cubes in a second, and what you can improvise, but literally Rory Story Cubes can create absolutely anything you want. Now, another tool that some of you may or may not be aware of that I've used in the past, I don't use them now, but certainly when I was starting out I did, and these are called plot twist cards. Plot twist cards offer a mechanical benefit for the Pathfinder First Ed Edition game, but it also includes a narrative suggestion. They're made by Game Mastery for Paizo. And so you might think, well, actually these cards are no use to me because the game system I'm playing is not Pathfinder. But that doesn't actually matter because it's the narrative suggestions that you want. Plot twist cards, you give them out randomly to your players if you want to change anything from the game plot to the game's events that might take place, locations, monsters, anything. So they use these cards as a guide to change some aspect of your adventure or your story. You can also give them out as a reward, so they don't have to just be given out randomly. You don't have to just... I always suggest draw them randomly from the deck, but if you decide you're just going to give them out, give everybody 1 or 2 of these at the beginning of the session, you could do that as well. I've done that. I would suggest that do not give out too many all at once. You can definitely find you have too many cards in play if your players get organized, and it's possible. This is not easy to do in a campaign or adventure, because it is possible for a campaign or adventure to come apart with player input. So you do have to be discerning about how you use them. So this is what I suggest to you when incorporating plot twist cards into your game sessions. The Game Master does not have to accept everything that a player presents when using a plot twist card. It's a suggestion. You can take the unused card if you do not want to incorporate it into the adventure and give them a new card. Get them to select a new card randomly from the deck. But you can also use things like yes and, yes but, and no but. Those are all options where you take an aspect of what they presented. I would always suggest to you that never allow them to simply say, I want you to come up with the idea. The players have to come up with the idea, not you. It's not the Game Master's job to do that. When you're using plot twist cards, it's the Game Master's job to decide what aspects of their idea are going to be able to be used or incorporated. That's what their job is. They're also not a wild card where you can trump something. If they're going to use these cards like Magic the Gathering to win a fight or resolve a situation, no. The idea of the cards is to make the adventure more interesting. In other words, create a complication. Create something that wasn't there. Okay? Make it more interesting. The idea of the plot twist cards was to ensure, I often found, that players did not get bored. And if players were getting bored and they felt like the Game Master wasn't really presenting enough challenge or enough interesting things going on, they could add something to it by using these cards. But as I've said before, you do not have to accept everything that a player presents when using the plot twist cards. It's perfectly fine to get them to draw a new card and take the old card off them. Or if they want to keep the old card, that's fine too, and use it at a later date. That's all good. So plot twist cards. A little bit of practice required to make this work, and it will be quite uncomfortable probably the first time. It took a while for my players to realize they weren't just a trump card and to use them to actually make the adventure more complicated rather than just win stuff. Okay, random charts. Random charts, random generators, whatever you want to call them. Random charts can be used to generate everything for a Game Master. Like literally, there's so many different tables and charts out there that cover every aspect of your game. Online random tables and charts, pretty easy to get hold of. Like Donjon, the website can create a whole dungeon location in seconds for multiple rule systems, not just 5e, but also other rule systems. But Donjon also has a lot of random generators that creates a lot of stuff, not just a location, not just a small microcosm of an adventure or a world. You can do a lot with Donjon. Okay, that's Donjon. Then there's Chartopia. Chartopia, the website, has many tables and random generators that you can use that people have made. You go through there, you simply bookmark or click on your favorites, and it turns it into a library that you can utilize later on. Plus, you can create and make your own and add them to the website. There's also D&D Speak. D&D Speak, the website, specializes in tables of 100 different things. Now, this is not related to Wizards of the Coast or an official D&D website. It is just called D&D Speak. Okay, this person spends quite a bit of time creating tables for this very purpose, and you'll find most of the things that you want probably on that website. You'll also find many books, such as the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide. It does a pretty good job of offering a lot of different random tables that you can use. The Game Master's Book of Random Encounters will not just offer you tables, but also just pages and pages of different locations that you could repurpose over and over again. There's also the Game Master's Book of Non-Player Characters, which just has pages and pages of random tables for generating NPCs, but also pre-made NPCs that you could port over and use into your homebrew games or whatever game you're running. And of course, the Dungeon Master Guide for 5e and other Dungeon Master Guides has stuff. I would say probably one of the best books for this is actually AD&D First Edition, and then you'll find progressively from there the tables that you'll see in modern D&D books that are for a dungeon master tend to be a reproduction of the older publications, just made to look more fancy, a bit prettier, stuff like that. Random tables, the best time to use them is when they're well organized. If you do not organize them, you can't access them quickly. You need to be able to access stuff quickly when using a random table chart. So the best way to do this is if you have physically put it in a folder or a clear slip, clear slip pages that you can just drop stuff into and organize it that way. Otherwise, if you're going digital, then make sure you use some sort of software package that allows you to have quick access, maybe with tabs on it, or even chapters, or hyperlinked would probably be very useful for you. So organize them that way if you're going to go digital. Okay, so another aspect to this, and that is the use of ChatGPT. This is where you use artificial intelligence to generate stuff. It's a random generator, a random table process, just like anything else. And of course, you can do that with images. You can do that with text. ChatGPT version 3 and 3.5 are not as advanced, but they are. ChatGPT version 3, I believe, is available free on the internet, but it is not the most advanced version of ChatGPT. The most advanced version of ChatGPT you have to pay for, and it is ChatGPT version 4, and that is not the prototype. So their prototype version would be even more advanced. Now, a lot of people have been using this, and I'm going to say right now, there's nothing wrong with using ChatGPT. The only time you're going to hit a snag with this is if you're using it to publish work. So is using it as a tool for your home game, or even if you're running, like a game in a public arena like it's all good. It's the only time using artificial intelligence to help you run your game is when you're trying to publish a book or present artwork as being your own, or presenting ideas as being your own, because you've got to understand that many of these artificial intelligence packages, they actually just scrape the internet. They just scour the internet and collect up other people's ideas. So that's why people have an issue with it. It's not about using it, it's about using it for publication, okay? But for you, if you're just running your own home game, or you're running something like a game in a game store, it's really not an issue at all, okay? All right, so let's move on to our next topic. And our next topic is plot points. Plot points is a little bit like the plot twist cards, but not exactly the same. Now, plot points were presented in the Dungeon Master Guide for Dungeons & Dragons 5e about 10 years ago, roughly. But it's not the first time it's shown up. It's not a new idea. It certainly wasn't presented in 5e for the very first time. They have existed for a long time. Players are given the ability to affect the campaign. You can give out 1 point, you can give out 2 points, but basically this plot point, when you spend it, it is used up, and you can change anything from the campaign to the adventure, the plot, the non-player characters, the monsters in the game, the threats, the traps, like anything can be changed. There's no restriction. Plot twist cards, they actually have a narrative to each card, so you have to kind of work with that narrative. So there's some restriction to how broad you can change things. Plot points don't do this. They also suffer from the same issues that plot twist cards do, but on a much grander scale. Plot points are going to give you much more hassles if you find them difficult to manage than something like plot twist cards, which have like I said, a very narrow sort of band for how you go about using them. So be wary of using them. You have to have players that are understanding and accept that you may not be able to do everything that they come up with. You also need to be a game master capable of dealing with a lot of change. If you do not like change, if you're struggling and just learning to improvise, this is probably not a tool you want to pick up straight away. Okay, there are other ways of improvising without going to this extreme. This is probably one of the most extreme methods to use. That doesn't mean it doesn't have value though. Okay. All right. Now, with that out of the way, let's look at no game preparation. So one of the things that a lot of people don't tell you is that to learn how to improvise, you have to have a lot of practice. It takes time, it takes practice, and to do so, you need to have enough situations occurring to be able to learn to improvise. Because if you just wait for them to happen based off all the material you've already prepared, it might not happen that often. Unfortunately, it's quite likely that you could wait many, many years to get the skills that you need. And if you want to learn and speed up that process, you have to prepare less. That doesn't mean you don't prepare anything, but certainly if you want to really speed it up, no game preparation will do that. Doing no game preparation on your adventure or your adventure preparation forces a game master to improvise everything, okay? And as part of that role-playing game. You've got nothing to refer to. You've just got to make it all up on the fly. That's very hard to do. I would not recommend this as something that you do if you get stressed or panic when running a game. This is the worst method for you to use if you cannot deal with stress and you panic. If you're the sort of person who just drinks a beer or has a little bit of a wine or doesn't get stressed out very easily, then you won't worry about this sort of thing. You'll be able to deal with it. If you're good at coming up with ideas quickly, it's going to work fine. But this will certainly speed up the process. I would suggest to you that it's probably a better idea to go with a compromise. And rather than doing no game preparation, although you can, that will certainly be the fastest way, is do less game preparation. Prepare just enough to get by and leave some spaces so that some of the stuff will be a surprise for you. And of course, it'll be a surprise to the players as well because you hadn't told them what it was anyway. This method is often practiced by a game master as a result of not having enough time to run their game session. This is, okay, I hadn't had time to prepare. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the session anyway because I don't want to disappoint my players. There's actually nothing wrong with doing that. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you would never do that. Never do that. Never. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. The problem is that over the years, I have found that there's no guarantee that a game that I prepare will be a session that my players will enjoy over a session where I did no game preparation and my players enjoyed. I've had games where I've done no game preparation, just showed up, run the game, was expecting to do a terrible job, and my players tell me it's the best game they've ever played, which is incredibly frustrating when you spend a lot of time preparing material. And then I've spent many, many hours and weeks preparing something, run the session, and the players have told me they didn't really enjoy themselves that much. So I almost feel like game preparation by a game master is to alleviate stress. It doesn't necessarily guarantee a good experience. But the other problem too with doing no game preparation and having to improvise is that you can wind up with quite cruel player feedback. So you have to be careful about the feedback you get from people. I would advise you against taking on board feedback by players who have never been a game master or dungeon master. If they've never run the game, their feedback is not as useful to you as a player who has been a game master or a dungeon master. Because one, game masters do not give generally, unless they're an asshole, do not give cruel feedback. They are much more careful about their feedback because they know what it's like to be a game master or dungeon master. So they understand when you might have some hassles along the way. And so they will be quite useful to actually listen to. Okay, now, given all of that, no game preparation or less game preparation being a tactic, what are the sort of things you can improvise? Well, you can improvise literally anything under the sun. You can use story cubes to improvise. You can use any of the methods that I've just talked about. You can create any element of your role-playing game. And I find quite often things like the title of a book found on a bookshelf or on a desk come up quite often. Like I forgot to write down what the titles of these books are in the library or in a shelf, because suddenly the player says, I would like to examine the shelves. And you're okay, so even if you write down 1 or 2 book titles, they might keep going through the shelf looking for more books. And you're like, what do I do here? So roll a couple of Rory story cubes and get an answer that way. The contents of a book can also read out by a character, could also be generated by improvising. Rory story cubes, as I found, has been very good for that, but there are other ways of doing that as well. The creation of a non-player character, I've just talked about that. Things like your personality traits, bonds, ideals, flaws, motivation, secrets, specifically the name of an NPC, because how many times do we suddenly find ourselves in a situation where we just need a name? Now, whether you use a random generator or you have a list of prearranged names that you will use when you get stuck, it's up to you. That's improvising, but that's preparing to improvise. Making a list of names is probably a smart idea. A quick adventure hook for a side quest can be improvised. Random encounters, not just combat encounters, but anything outside of combat. Just an experience, whether that be a puzzle, a trap. I would personally not try and improvise a puzzle. It's quite difficult to do. But a trap you could probably get away with, and we might even demonstrate that today. A letter's content that an NPC might have a clue in there. You can improvise these sorts of things. Runes found in an ancient calm castle or a temple or a tomb that unlocks some sort of magical secret. These can be improvised. You can improvise and create monsters on the fly. Reskinning is probably the easiest way to do that, where you take a monster that has a stat block and a little bit of lore, and you simply just change its look a little bit. You can develop travel locations for your party as they journey to a far-off place. You can create official documents, journal entries, loot items, trinkets, magic items, and the list goes on. There really is no limit to what you can do with this. Now, usually when I do this, I give out some miscellaneous recommendations. But before I do give out some miscellaneous recommendations, I think it would be wise for me to cover some of the newer concepts out there that I have kind of talked about briefly, but I haven't gone into a lot of detail. So I'm going to go over these reasonably quickly. And the reason being is that this is going to take a long time to do otherwise. So some concepts and ideas and some alternative methods for improvising that you may not have looked at that you might want to consider using. I'm going to suggest the tried and true yes and, yes but, and no but, and explain when they are supposed to be used and why you would use them. Okay? So we're going to my face because I've run out of slides. I do not have slides for these. Okay, so alternative methods. So yes and. Now what is this? This is when a player has their character perform an action or present an idea that will affect the adventure, and you say yes, that's fine, and you add something additional to the situation. So an example might be they decide they're going to jump off a flying ship onto a dragon that's flying by, stab their weapon into the creature, and that's what they would like to do. And you say, that's fine, you can attempt that. But we're not going to go but here, we're going to go and. We're going to add to it, aren't we? So we're adding something extra. So we're also going to have this taking place in a thunderstorm. Yes, you can do that, but there's also a lightning storm taking place around you. So there's a new threat involved. Not just trying to land on the dragon and stab your weapon into it and hang on tight, but also the chance of getting an electric shock from a bolt of lightning from above. So we're adding something additional, okay? Then we have yes, but. And yes, but is when you can't take on the entire idea that the player presented. So you take the player's idea or action and you adjust it, or you change something, and it's not a lot. So it's just a small adjustment. So maybe they say to you, I would like to jump off that flying ship onto the flying dragon during the thunderstorm that you're talking about and stab my weapon into them and hold on tight, and I've got spiky boots and I want to kick them with my spiky boots to hurt the dragon. And you say, yes, you can do all of that, but the spiky boots aspect of it, you can't do that because it's going to take up too many actions during this round. You'll have to do that next round. So we're amending it slightly, not by much, but just a little bit. Or you might say, yes, you can do that, but you're going to have to run along a certain part of the ship to do this. Like, you might have to get onto the plank and run along the plank that's projected, or the arm of a mast or something like that. One of the stays or a mast stays. You might have to run across that first to get enough height to be able to jump onto the dragon. So we're still letting them do it, but we're making a slight adjustment. The next one is often viewed as a bad idea to do, but it has a purpose, like yes and yes but. They all have a purpose. There's nothing wrong with any of them. They're simply tools. And that is called no but. And no but is you don't accept the player character's action or idea overall. There's too much going on here. It's just not going to work. But you take a small element of their idea and include it into something related to the situation. So, for example, maybe they say, look, I would like to leap off this flying ship, and my intention is I would leap off and stab my sword into the dragon that's flying past, and then I want to be able to just hang on tight. But you say, well, the problem is that the distance between your flying ship and the dragon is too far. You could not jump over to the dragon and stab it with your weapon. It's just not possible. But if you would get somebody to fly the ship higher above the dragon and get closer, then maybe you could. And this is an example of no but. Okay? Or it doesn't even have to be that they will potentially succeed, but you could at least attempt it. Yeah? You're taking a small element of that. You might even have and stipulate that the only way to do this is if you have wings or a parachute. So you're taking some element of it, but there's a but to it. There are some complications the player may not have taken into consideration given the situation that you described. All three are completely legitimate methods of using your improvising skills, and each one takes into consideration what the player wants to do and what you can do with your adventure and what you've already set up. Okay, next. There is a thing that you'll probably find pretty easily, and that is blank dice. I suggest very large 6-sided dice. You can actually create your own random generators with 6-sided dice, okay? A Sharpie pen with a nice small tip, and you just write your ideas on there. You're basically creating a small physical random generator. You could create some wandering monsters. So you might decide to write 6 different monsters on there, and that's what you roll when you have a patrol of monsters moving through the area. Or if you want to include wandering monsters. You might decide that I struggle with figuring out what the weather's like. So I'm going to write down 6 different weather types. Maybe it's cloudy, sunny, raining, thunderstorm, whatever it might be, okay? Showers, whatever you want, you put in there. And you write it onto dice, and then you just roll the dice when you need to present the weather. And you can do that with many different things. There's also a thing called face cards. These are basically just NPCs, characters that you would use in your adventure, and it's just a card. You can get decks of these things. I believe that Pathfinder, Paizo put out a lot of these at one point, and you could probably get them from other publishers if you wanted to look for them. You can even make your own. You can just find an image on the internet, print it out, and then stick it onto a piece of cardboard and make up your own face cards. All it is an image of sort of the bust area of a character for a fantasy campaign, or even a science fiction campaign. And you're using that image. And what you would do is you take the card and maybe put a post-it note on the back, and you write down the name, character aspects as you figure them out. It allows you to sort of build the character as you go, and you're using a physical medium to record it, because of course a lot of us struggle to record stuff when we're running our games. One of the great things about using a picture of an NPC is that, as they've always said, right, a picture tells 1,000 words. And so if you're using something like this, if you are a visual person, you can look at the picture and by their expression, one, the image tells me, okay, I've picked up and this one looks like a half orc or an orc. They look quite angry. They've lost a tusk. They have a rather fancy looking hairstyle. Like I get a lot of elements from a picture. So that's why I would suggest using them, particularly if you struggle making NPCs and you like to have an image to go along with that. The next one is a single sheet of paper. Like this is one of the best tools out there. I know it sounds weird, like a piece of paper, Fred. Really, a piece of paper and a pen. Now, whether it's a pencil or a pen, it doesn't matter. And what you do is you use it as a brainstorm. As you're playing your game and people present ideas to you, you jot them down. And you'll find there will be different elements that the players are bringing in, different things they are doing, different things that you're trying to do with the adventure. And then you can start making connections. Okay, you can start using that as an ongoing brainstorm as you're running the adventure so that you can change things as you need to. Because as we all know, when you run any kind of adventure, the players will change how things will work out because they are interacting with what you've created or what you're presenting. So yeah, by word association. I know a lot of people struggle to deal with images and words work better for them. So this is one way of getting around that. There's another thing you can do with that piece of paper, and that is suddenly somebody decides they want to go somewhere and you weren't expecting. They say, well, we want to go to the library. And you didn't actually have a map or that location prepared. So you take a small break and go and get everybody to go take a toilet break and grab some refreshments or some food, whatever it is. Take 5 minutes and you just sit down and for 5 minutes you draw up a very quick connected location, your library in this case. 5 locations is more than enough. You draw up your map, you label it, and you pretty much got a structure to work with now. This technique I've used a few times. It works pretty well. And for those of you who really struggle with map drawing, my suggestion to you is one of the best things you can do to improve this skill is to draw lots of maps outside of game time. Draw your own maps. They don't have to be good. You just have to be able to do it. You know, looking at architecture, remembering the structure of how buildings are put together. You've been to a lot of buildings, right? It's not something that's new to you. So you can do this very, very easily, okay? You've been into a house, you know what a house layout tends to look like. You've probably been to a library, you probably know what a library looks like. You may not have been to a temple, but you've probably been in a church, so you know what a church is laid out like. You may not have been into a tomb, but it's pretty easy to research or look up what the tomb structure would look like and how they're usually laid out, particularly the Egyptian ones because they're almost identical in how they're laid out. So there's those castles can be tricky, but you know usually you know that there are certain things. There's going to be a curtain wall, there's going to be a keep, there's going to be a guardhouse or a gatehouse of some kind. There might be stables, things like that. You know, you can draw these things in pretty quickly and then you can use it. So the 5-minute map, and we might do an example of that today. I think that might be a good idea to actually do a demonstration. Okay, and then I was talking about artificial intelligence and their different services, ChatGPT and Midjourney, and there are many different artificial or AI art drawing programs out there. I don't know that necessarily creating images is your biggest issue. What I have discovered is you can use artificial intelligence drawing software to create maps. If you train it, you can do a pretty good job. Stable Diffusion apparently does the best job at this, but that's, you know, there's a bit of setup required and a bit of cost as well. It can be a bit expensive, but they can generate maps as well, not just a picture of a monster or a scene or a location that you might want to present in your adventure, and you just put in some text prompts and away it goes. I think the biggest tool that people have been using right now that I hear of from people who watch my channel is ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, as I said, just scours the internet looking for everybody else's idea and then pulls it together based off whatever prompts you give them. And there's nothing wrong with doing that as long as you're not publishing it and then passing it off as your own work, because a lot of the time that's really, AI is just taking somebody else's idea. So that's the extent of my advice for you. But every time I do this, I like to give you some miscellaneous recommendations. And I've been talking for a long time, which is always bad because it means you're not really interacting that much with me. But let's get to the miscellaneous recommendations, shall we? The first thing is, please don't judge your own improvising strictly, as it's not always clear what players will enjoy. Do not jump to conclusions that what you have tried to improvise during the game was garbage, or that it was wonderful. You will only know if your players respond and answer the question, did you have a good time with this? Did you like what I did here? Did you enjoy yourself? Did you like the adventure? Did you like the story? Whatever you want to present it like. And then it will only be useful to you when you ask those questions if your players are actually honest with you. And again, you've got to be careful about player input. Player input is often, I'm going to say it right now, that our gaming community have not necessarily got the best social skills out there. And sometimes you can wind up getting some rather cruel feedback. So you've got to be careful about how you get feedback. And, if there's no point asking a question from somebody who's playing in your game who's a complete stranger, because they probably won't answer that question honestly anyway. But if you're dealing with friends, hopefully you have friends that can actually be honest with you, and family and friends will probably be a bit more honest with their presentation of what they thought. Improvising takes time to practice. You need to do it before the game, during the game, so don't expect to be very good at it without practice. Okay, so you have to be able to practice, and you need to practice a lot. Everybody is different, so it will take everybody a different length of time to develop these skills to a point where they're useful to you, and they actually do what they need to do. So everybody's different. Some people it's going to take 1 month. Some people it's going to take 2 years. Some people are going to take 10 years. It's all good. Like, everybody's allowed to be different. And also the amount of time that you're doing it, and how many games you're playing, how many games you're running, that all affects the whole process. Now, even if your players don't like what you're improvising as a game master, it doesn't mean the players' feedback needs to be given a lot of weight. I've said this before. Because remember, you've been put on the spot. When you improvise an aspect of a game, there's no guarantee that it's going to be good. Quite often, ideas that have had a bit of time spent on them, developing them, will probably generally be better. But that's not always the case, okay? And also, not every player has particularly good improvising skills themselves. So just because you weren't able to do it doesn't mean the player gets to give you a hard time, because they weren't very good at it either. Remember, you're not the only person playing the game. The game master is not the one who actually creates the adventure. It is everybody at the table. Okay, there are people playing the monsters and the creatures. That's your game master. And there are people playing the main characters. And so everybody's part of this. It's everybody's responsibility to actually have a good time. And I'd also like to point out, I think sometimes players forget that some of the things they do with their characters aren't really that impressive. But you don't need to necessarily go into a lot of detail about those sorts of things. Sometimes that's unnecessary. Sometimes the only time we really need to talk about what people have done at the table is when things have gone completely out of control, or we just had a really good time and just wanted to give positive feedback. I'm going to say this right now. You've got to always be careful about getting feedback from players about your improvising, because if you don't have players that will allow you to improvise and make mistakes and have sessions that aren't that good, then that group will not survive. You need to have players who are willing to allow you as a game master, as a dungeon master, to make mistakes, to learn to improvise, and to try new things. Just like a a player needs a game master to allow the players to try new things to see where it all goes, because they're trying to find their way as well when they're playing their character. If everybody needs to allow everybody else to make mistakes, do things that weren't that great, and improvise along the way and see where it all goes. Ultimately, this is a game. It's supposed to be fun. Okay, that's all I have to say for today. And yes, I'm hoping this was useful to you. I want to thank my patrons who support me on Patreon so I can run this program every week. This program is part of Game Master Preparation. We'll be covering something different next week. I want to thank you for listening and watching, and hopefully you've got something out of this. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm finished with my presentation. Now, I would normally do some stuff. I'm sorry I have taken so long to discuss all this. The problem is with learning to improvise is I'm adding more and more tools, and it's taking longer and longer for me to say it all and get it out there. So yeah, but at least I guess, looking at it this way, you're getting a complete package. Okay, so we've got here a few people. We've got Michael Stan, who is a patron. Hello, Michael. We've got Fred Huber, who is also a patron. Thank you for being here. Jacob Hope, hello. Wheel of the Wise. Really? Did you like that? Thank you. I don't know about Wheel of the Wise. Earth's Elminster. I don't know about that. Keeper of Scrolls and the toller of the tolls. Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate that. You know you're improvising is good when you have to keep turning down new players and the current players told about the game. Yes, that's right. It's very true. You know you're doing something right when there's more people trying to get into your game than you can manage, and you have to turn people away. And you do, honestly, people made this mistake. You probably will have to turn people away at some point if you start finding that happening at your table. How's it going, Jay McCoy? How are you? Now, I believe, and I could be wrong, that I had a new patron join me recently. And I believe that is Joseph McCoy. Thank you for being a patron, Joseph. I hope that you find what you find on my Patreon useful to you. If you did, great. If you didn't, give it time. Give it time. Anyway, I think what we should do is we should start doing some stuff. I've been talking a lot about bits and pieces. I think it's probably very smart for us to start working on some of the things I've been discussing. And let's make this interactive. We don't have too many people in the chat today, so I don't think it's going to be very difficult. So I think what we'll do is let's play a couple of different games. Well, let's consider these exercises in some way. I think that's probably the smartest way to deal with this, is just treat it like a bit of a game, give you some exercises to do, and then go from there. That's me. That's right. Joseph McCoy. I did see it. I did see you sign up. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, but this is what I want to do first. I'm going to ask you a question, and those of you who are here, you're going to tell me what you want me to cover first, because we normally do some sort of exercise, and I want you to be able to interact with us. So hashtag what improvising method do you want to practice or try first? Hashtag or do you want me to demonstrate? So I actually will demonstrate. I've got more than one camera, so I can demonstrate some stuff first. So we're going to put that in as our... That is what I'm asking you. you're going to let me know. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, come back, and for the last part of this hour, last part of the session, we'll go through as many of those as we possibly can that people want me to cover. I don't know that I can necessarily get through all of them. It might be a bit of a push. We'll see how we go. Anyway, Arnold will look after you. I'll be back in 5 minutes, and I'll go take a toilet break. Okay. All right, coming back. Let's get this show on the road. Okay. All right. Okay. Here we go. I'm back. Hello. How are you? Hopefully you have decided what you would like me to do. And we'll start with whatever method you would like to get moving first. I'm curious to see story cubes. Take 4 story cubes, roll using at least 2 cubes, write a room. Okay, so let's go with Joseph's suggestion of story cubes. And Fred Huber, you have suggested let's create a description for a room. Using that, I think that's actually not a bad idea. Since I said you can do pretty much anything with story cubes, let's make that a reality, shall we? So I'm going to move a few things out of the way, and books and so forth, and just set up a screen so you can see this. And I think what we'll also make sure we do is give you some way of seeing what I'm writing down. So is this going to work? I think that will not work, but we'll just grab that. I think this is probably good enough. I've got a Sharpie pen, so it should come out nice and clear. And I've got some paper, which I will just stack on top of each other, and hopefully that will just not bleed all the way through. That's my biggest problem, is bleeding through. And yeah, let's do our first suggestion. So let's switch over to a different screen so you can see what's going on. So this is the screen here. And Fred Hubert has said we are going to do a room. So improvise a room. Okay. 1, 2, we're going to use 4 dice, 3, and we'll come down here with our different ideas. Okay, all right, so grab the dice, plop them out. I'm just going to grab 4 of them, just like so. Yeah, the dice we'll put out of the way. And we'll do this exercise once rather than multiple times. And you guys will come up with your own ideas of different ways of doing this, okay? This is all about practice. So you are going to come up with your own ideas. I will write down some of these, and then we'll go from there. And Michael, we'll come through your suggestions as well. So don't think I haven't spotted your ideas there. Keep putting your stuff in there. We'll go from here. So let's start off with creating a room. Okay. So hashtag 4 elements to a room. Okay. I roll the dice. So we got a honeybee, a walking stick, an L, and what looks like a lock. So 4 ideas. I'm going to write down some ideas. By all means, present your ideas in the chat as well. It's always fun if we do something like that, because I feel like that's stretching your imagination. Remember, it's not just about me coming up with ideas, it's about you. So we're going to have here a bee nest. There's a bee nest on the ceiling. Now, the great thing about having a bee nest is now we have a potential threat. If they disturb the bee nest to try to get the honey, those bees might swarm. So messing with the bees is always a bad idea. And as you know, when you have a nest of bees, they tend to sort of fly around. So it's easy to wind up swiping them and annoying them. You could wind up with a lot of trouble. So there's one aspect to our room. Hornets use the keyhole as a nest. Great one, Joseph. Nice. There's an idea. So I will take... we'll just take down your idea here. Hornets use keyhole. Okay, I'll just write it down like that. Okay, you've got down as a nest. L. So what do we want to use with the L? Well, let's say that we have an L-shaped seat or lounge settee, some sort of settee or lounge. So L-shaped soft chair. Okay. So it's a piece of furniture. We've used one of those elements there. We've got a walking stick. What else can we add to our room to make it a little bit more interesting? Well, we could have a walking stick rested against a wall somewhere. We could have a box that keeps walking sticks. We could have just a box full of walking sticks, which sort of asks a different question. Fred Hubbard suggested another option, which is a crippled old man locked in an L-shaped room with beekeeping equipment. So, cool. Let's take crippled old man. I'm going to break Fred's idea into pieces. So now we only had 4 dice, but we've got more than 4 ideas coming out of this, okay? Instead of an L-shaped soft chair, we have an L-shaped room. Very good. And then what else do we have here that we can take a part of it? There is beekeeping equipment. Beekeeping equipment. equipment. Okay, we're almost run out of space on my piece of paper, so let's see what else we've got here. Joseph, you've got here, walking stick of an old man who needs it to escape from escape room covered in bees. Okay, so man covered in bees. And bees. Feels like a dangerous situation. And our last idea we'll take down is you've got here, old man needs a walking stick. So what started off as essentially a pretty sort of basic couple of images turned into a room. And is that enough to keep your players interested? Is it not going to be enough? I mean, that you will only know when you try it out. That's the thing with improvising is the acid test is you try it out and you see how people respond to it. And if they like it, then they'll keep going with it. So that's a very simple room and situation. So let's take the story cubes away. I'm going to get rid of this piece of paper. And let's have a look at what are some of the other ideas people had put forward that they were asking for. Okay, Michael Stan. Normally, practice is key, but you really can't practice this kind of thing. You have to improvise as you go. Yes, you do. So I guess, Fred, demonstrate, I guess. Okay, Michael. All right. I mean, I'm not going to dispute that. I think you're absolutely right that practice comes from doing it. So let's take some of these things that I've been talking about and let's practice them. Let's see how we go. What I will do here. Oh, isn't there a Ripley's Believe It or Not guy who was completely covered in bees? Maybe a monster on the NPCs at Ashley's. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You could do something like that. Whatever you think will be fun. Right, let's do. Now, I've been talking about this a lot, and I don't think I demonstrated it very well when I talked about it the first time in this about 2.5 months ago. And that is yes and, yes but, and no but. I explained that process, but what I did not do is give you an opportunity to practice how you would deal with that situation. So let's deal with that as an aspect. I am going to give you a question, and basically I'm going to write it up in a second, but this is how it's going to work. We're going to deal with yes but. Okay, hashtag. No, yes and. Let's do yes and. Yes and. Okay, so yes and. This is how it works. I am going to present you, I'm your player, and I'm going to present an idea that I want to do in the game. And then you are going to respond with yes and. So you accept the idea and you add something else to it. And I say that I would like to steer, we're on a sailing ship, for example. This is our scenario. We're on a sailing ship and we're sailing towards a large whale who has a spike on it like Moby Dick. And I decide that the last thing that I want to do is veer the ship away. Instead, I want to try to ram the ship into the whale who's also playing chicken with us. So for you, you're the game master now. I want you to take that and go, yes, you can do that and something else. So what you're trying to do is add something else to complicate the situation. I, as the player, want to ram into the whale. Okay? So how would you present that? Just type in something into the chat now. You hadn't thought about that guy since you were a kid? The biggest bee beard. Guinness Book of Records. So if that's the situation, and let me just type it in if you're not unsure. I want to ram a sailing ship into a whale called, let's say Moby Dick. Okay, that's the thing I want to do. How are you going to respond? So Fred has got here, I think someone reset the Guinness Book Record bee's bed just a couple of years ago. We're still on the bee bed. I wasn't expecting that. Has anybody got a response to how they might go about adding to that particular situation where a player decides they want to ram a sailing ship into a big whale? Yeah. If you don't, you don't. If you feel a bit conscious about putting in your feedback, that's fine too. You can ram the whale with the ship and do so. So doing, you will render the ship inoperative. Yep. Put a hole in it. Yep. That would be adding something to it. That's a consequence. There's another way of doing this, Joseph, and that is you could say that there is actually, you could include it taking place in a storm. Yes, you can ram your sailing ship into the big whale. Okay. I didn't put whale, I put what? Sorry about that. It's supposed to be whale. Okay. You might say there's a large freak wave coming. There might be you might say there's more than one whale. Like, yeah, you can do that, but there's actually 4 whales. There's a pod of whales, in fact. So good luck. Do you know what I mean? You've also got here, or your rigging crew will be knocked into the sea. Yes, you can say, yes, you can ram it in there, and your rigging crew will probably be knocked into the sea. You could do that. What I'm saying is, when they present the thing they want to do, you add something to the scene. Rather than you explain to them the consequence of their action, you add something additional to the scene. Does that make sense? We add a storm, we add a freak wave, we add more whales, we have a fire on board the ship, whatever it might be. You're adding something additional. That's what yes and is really all about. You can certainly try ramming the whale, roll seamanship, whale reaction to attempt to dive. Yes, you could have the whale say that the whale dives under, so actually ramming the whale. Yeah. It's not so much a consequence. There's always going to be consequences as a game master. You're always the person who's presenting the consequences, right? What we're doing is they're presenting something they want to do or something they would like in the adventure, and you're adding to the scene to make it more than it was. Does that make sense? You're adding to the scene. That's what you were trying to do. So I guess having the whale dive under the ship certainly would be something. What else? You could have a group of porpoises next in the, close by if you wanted to. You could have yes, you can try to ram the whale, but there's also a kraken trying to grab hold of your ship. Is this really the best idea right now? What is what is the greatest threat? So you add something else. Or maybe you say, yes, you're going to ram into the whale, but the whale's not white. It's not Moby Dick. It's actually multicolored. You're adding something else to it, something to the scene, rather than describing what the consequences are. That's the thing to understand. Yeah? Okay, let's try another one. I think we kind of got an idea of what yes and is, hopefully. And if you've got some ideas you want to add in for that scene, then by all means throw them in there now. Next, let's do yes, but. This is when the player presents an idea which you partly like, but you can't use all of it. Yep. So this is yes, but. Okay. There is another whaling ship bearing down on your location. Joseph, perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That is yes and. You can definitely try to ram into the whale, but there's also another ship bearing down on your position. Perfect. Make the PC actions affect the game world. Yes, and that's exactly what Joseph's done. He's added something to it. Okay. All right. Now, yes, but. This is when a player presents an idea, as I said, that you like, but you can't use all of it. for whatever reason it might be. So I'm going to present you with an idea which is quite outlandish. Let's give you something that's really, really outlandish, and we want to sort of work with that. And I say, as a player, I would like to travel to the moon, and I have a grappling hook and a rope that has this rope is a magical rope, right? And I want this magical rope, I want it to have an unlimited length, and I want to wind up and throw my grappling hook tied to my rope that has an unlimited length. I want to lasso, basically. I want to catch onto the moon, and then I want to climb up the rope to the moon. And you say, yes, you can do that, but does that make sense? So let's do that. Let's do this one. How would you respond to that? So you take the idea that I've presented and you have to trim some of it off in some way. Does that make sense? you hit the wrong whale and you made the bigger whale mad. So there's another whale coming in. So Fred Huber's brought in another whale. You've only hit the baby whale. He rammed the baby whale, but the daddy whale showed up. Okay, all right. So let's do hashtag. I want to get to the moon by by throwing a magic rope and grappling hook at it. Okay, so this is a very outrageous situation. This is one of those situations where they're really asking to do way too much, right? So yes, you can do that, but now how would you go about approaching this? This is a hard question, because lassoing the moon is pretty outrageous, right? Joseph, what have you got here? You can use the rope to lasso the moon, but first you must climb the magic mountain to get the best location for success. Perfect. Joseph, right on the money. That's exactly what the kind of thing I was looking for. So you have allowed them to do the outrageous thing, if that's all right with you. And then what you've done, but you've put into provisos, there are some conditions and restrictions, and that's what the but is all about. Does that make sense? I'm interested to see what Fred has got here. As you climb your rope to the moon, you get to where there's inadequate air to breathe, and you fall unconscious, falling 27,000 feet. Okay. All right, so you can climb to the moon, but there's a point where you can't breathe anymore, so you're going to wind up passing out. Okay, so Fred, what you've done is you have provided a restriction. It's actually a consequence. What you've done is you put in a consequence, Fred. Joseph hasn't really put in a consequence. He's put in a condition for potentially having the opportunity to do this successfully. So I guess if we were to reframe what you've put here, Fred, what's the best way to look at this? Yep. I think probably what we would say is, yes, you can lasso the moon with your rope and your grappling hook. And as you climb up, you find it harder and harder to breathe. Do you really want to continue? So what you've done is you put in a barrier, and now the players have got to make that choice. They're not instantly going to be climbing and suddenly find themselves unconscious and then fall. They're going to start to lose their breath over time, but now they have to make a choice because there's no air here. So now we get the opportunity. Well, now do I need something like some ability to actually, eliminate the necessity to breathe air? Do I need to climb back down the rope, make sure I have a spacesuit with me? Or do I need to have some sort of magic in place to ensure that I can breathe in an airless environment? Do you know what I mean? So I guess that would be a better way of wording it. But yeah, essentially the same. I mean, we're heading in the right direction. Just remember, it's not the consequence, it is how we're reframing the scene. Okay, next. No but. I do have enough dice for that damage. I bet you do. Well, in 5e, you only get to roll 26-sided dice anyway, don't you? Unless you homebrew it. Um, anyway, let's do the next one. No but. Okay, no but. So let me explain what we're trying to do with no but. I'm going to present a situation, something... yeah. So I'm going to present a situation which is absolutely ridiculous. It's going to be really, really bad. It's probably going to be something that will harm the group in some way. Not just the adventure itself and the characters in the adventure, but the group as a whole. Okay? And my players, I'm going to be the player. I'm going to present you with the idea, and you're going to say no, but you're going to take a small aspect of it that they can pursue if they want to. Okay, so you're going to reframe the scene. And this is what I say. I want to steal Tarmat's crown and bring Tarmat into the world and have Tarmat lay waste to the rest of my party so I can take over the world as the king or the queen. That is what I'm trying to do. Okay, I'm using Tiamat or Tarmat, Tiamat, whatever. Okay, I'm using the Queen of Dragons crown to control the Queen of Dragons to wipe out my own party so I can take over the world. Now, you will always get players who will do something like this. And so it's important to take and reframe what they're trying to do to manage the situation, because what would happen if you were to allow them to do something like that is there's quite possibly going to be a lot of people who are going to get very pissed off, and they will not come back to your table, and they will not want to play with that person again. Unless you have people who have a very good sense of humor, okay? And will allow pretty much anything. So let me write this up here. I want to use the crown of Tiamat. Let me get this right. Tiamat to destroy my party of friends and take over the world. All right, I'm about to put this in here, so it'll be in text. I want to use the crown of image. Okay, so I have just put forward a pretty outrageous sort of thing. So now you've got to look at the situation and think, okay, no, I can't allow this, but is there any aspect of this that I can put there that they can still at least play through? Because something like this would probably more than likely wreck the entire group's integrity. Yep. One time my NPC BFG Wizard cast Fireball. I showed the players a handful of D6 that didn't look too bad. I rolled the dice. 20. I'm lost, Fred. You've lost me, Fred, completely. Okay, so now remember, I've put in my request, and you as the game master have to say no to this. You can't say yes to it, but you have to take some element of it that they can at least pursue. Yeah? No but. So what would that be? This is the question, out of all questions and everything we do today, you are probably going to need to know how to deal with more than anything else, is how to be able to include somebody who is essentially trying to be a dick. Let's get real. Me as the player right now, I'm trying to be an asshole. That's the reality. I'm being very selfish, and I'm really just revolving it around myself. And answers like that's what my character would do are not good enough. Anyway, so what has Joseph got here? I'm looking forward to this. You can't have Tiamat destroy your party, but you can use the crown to summon the dragon to your realm. Brilliant. Where he or she will have their own free will. Perfect. Joseph, right on the money. You did really well. That's exactly what no but is. That's no but. Okay, so what do you got here, Fred? Okay, you have to find the parts of the crown. Okay, good. and then you have to dominate each dragon one at a time. So you've put in quite a lot of criteria to actually make this happen. And you can only tell one dragon at a time what to do. The others try eating you while you control one of them. Okay. All right. So you've actually put in, so you've allowed them, you've put in a lot of different steps, a lot of different conditions to actually achieve what they want to do, which is going to make it very hard. Probably the likelihood of success is very slim. And you've got two criteria. Plus, there's a good chance that in the process, their character will probably die if they pursue this action. So great. Okay. All right. Now, there's another aspect to this question that we need to say too right now. You can't do that, but you cannot be a something at the goal at your table. A wang rod. I was waiting for somebody to say this. So you can't do that, but you can not be a wang rod at the table. You got to call it out at some point. You know, you give them an option in the game, so no but, and you call out the wang rod behavior. And Joseph, that's exactly what I was looking for. Because there's a point where when you're dealing with something like that, you really need to be able to say, look, what you're trying to do is really destructive to the group. I mean, you can pursue it, and this is how you can go about doing it. It's not going to work out exactly the way you like, more than likely, because there's going to be some restrictions here. Do you really want to pursue this? But it's a very it's a very dickish move. You know, it's not the sort of thing that you do with people that you're supposed to be adventuring with that you actually like and that like you. So yes, that discussion has to take place. And this is one of those times when you are dealing with this, the no but, you almost always have to approach it, not just at the game level, but at the meta player level as well. You need to have a discussion around that sort of thing. Because usually when you're having to say no but, they've done something that's a bit much. That whatever they're trying to put in place is way beyond what a social contract would allow. Yeah, which is we play together for fun. And this is not fun for a lot of other people. You know what I mean? So yeah, great, nice, good job. All right, now let's do another one. Here we go. I will grab this. I'm not going to draw on them, but I want you to come up with blank dice. We've got blank dice, 6-sided dice. And we need to come up with some things that we would put on here. If we had 6 sides, what would you put on here for your dice? So hang a hashtag. What would you write on a 6-sided dice to create some small random generator? Okay, what do you got here, Fred? I have told a player that their cleric is not required to raise the dead PC that they just tried to betray the party. Exactly. Yeah. these are those things. This is that's this time, right? This is the sort of stuff we have to deal with at some point. Okay, now let's go over to this. Here are my blank dice. Here is my blank piece of paper, and I want you to come up with some ideas about how you would go about creating a random generator. I'm not going to write on the dice because the pen has just not got a small enough tip. It just won't work. But I will write on the piece of paper your ideas. I'm going to write down my ideas, and then you're going to write down some of your own ideas, things that you might find useful. Now, I have 2 that I mentioned before. 1, weather effects. Okay, weather effects. And my weather effects are going to be sunny, clouds, rain, storm. How many have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 2 more. Let's put in cloudy, showers, and snow. Do I want snow? Blizzard. Let's put a blizzard in here. We've got storm. We'll put blizzard. Blizzard. So there are my 6 ideas for weather effects: sunny, clouds, rain, storm, showers, blizzard. And somebody else has come up with 6 ideas. Okay, Fred Hubbard, what do you got here? I have inscribed a D20 with class, race, background, and assorted other PC creations attributes. Most of the player's handbook tables for creation can be done on a D12. Okay, all right. So let's go here. You said class, and you got 12 classes on a D12. Okay, so we're talking about your barbarian, your bard, all that sort of thing. I'm not going to write them all out, but you got there. So 12 classes. 12 classes. Okay. Next, what else have we got here? You've got here races, backgrounds. So we can do races and backgrounds. Actually, we'll grab to Joseph's one. You've got here 1, pick, emotion, location, complication, boon, external effect. Okay. All right. So emotions. We could do one for emotions. Pick us something. Let's do emotion. So if we need the emotion for an NPC and a 6-sided dice, that would be, let's go something like sad, happy, angry, fear. 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 2 more. Yeah, pick a number. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Fear. What else have we got here? Sad, happy, angry, fear. Those are the key ones. And then we've got, I guess, go with depressed, depressed. And then the last one we could go, I don't know, flat. I don't know what else to say there. Flat. Okay, right. What else have we got here? We could do locations, complications, boons, external effects. Yes. I have a set of 8 D6 from approximately 1984 that have trap type, loot type, passage, random passage direction, door, room, and other to make a totally random dungeon. I believe you. Pick a number. All right, so let's take another one here. You had said race, so we could put races on here. If we wanted to make up races randomly, we could go human, elf, dwarf, gnome, orc, and what else is there? Dwarf, a gnome, halfling. All right, so we've got 6. Whatever we want. Okay. Next, I was thinking those were all on the same dice. Oh, I see what you're trying to do. Okay. But I see with a set of dice, it would be better to do like you're doing. Yeah, yes. So you're going with 6 options for whatever category. That's really what I'm aiming for. So location. Let's take your location idea, because you wrote down the word location, right? So let's go location. If we're going to have location dice, we could do that. So we could go here: cave, castle, house, What else have we got here that needs to be added to our? What are other things that we often find out in the you know, structures? We've cave, castle, house, tomb. Let's put down something else. What do we got here? Stonehenge. Hinge. Oh, that's not really it. What else would be? Yes, Hobbit. Yeah, you can cross. There you go, Hobbit. There you go. Hobbit. Tavern? Yeah, it's tavern. Absolutely, because everybody wants to fight in a tavern. Tavern. Desert. So these are sort of structures, and we could have one that's for locations that's more around sort of natural environments. So if we could go location, you could go cave, forest, deserts, you know, lake, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things you can do. And now let's keep going. We're almost to the bottom of this piece of paper. I'm going to drink some water before I lose my voice. Okay, so what was another one that somebody had mentioned here that we can use and pull down off? We had race, we had background, assorted other PC attributes, table of creation. So background, let's go background. Why not? 6 backgrounds. So if we were thinking of an NPC and we wanted to use this for NPCs and generating NPCs, what are the most often used NPCs? So merchant, bandit, what else you got here? I also am trying to make a set of D20, really, but the triangles are small, hard to draw with small symbols. Now, this is why I suggest a D6, because they're nice and big. It doesn't give you a lot of options, but it does give you some. Merchant, bandits. What else is there that we might be using as an NPC? Let's go traveler. Hermit. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. If you look around, you can definitely get dice that have blank sides on them. Traveler, hermit, and then what else might be another thing that we can add in there? Hireling. Yes, absolutely. Hireling. Priest. There we go. All right. So we've got 6 options on our 6-sided dice. And so that's basically the process. It's like you're using your dice as just a very small random generator. There's another thing you can do, which is quite nice, and that is if you want to just have random monsters, wandering monsters. Whether they fight you or not is not the issue, right? It's just, I just need to have wandering monsters they come across from time to time. And it might be as simple as orc, goblin, ogre, wolf, troll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, you could have noble as well. Absolutely. I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 on the backgrounds anyway. But you can write down the backgrounds from the player's handbook for 5e if you wanted to. You know, just pick 6 of them that you would probably use a lot. Troll, orc, goblin, wolf, and maybe let's put down here lizard folk. There we go. So you got your wandering monster table. Harpy, yes, absolutely, Joseph. So there is. Let's deal with some dice and work our way through them. So we've done that. Let me jump back to my face for a second and let's have a look at what other things people wanted me to cover. I'm just going to go back and have a quick look here. No but, no but. I want moon. No, yes. That's that. We did the 4 elements. Okay. Also, I have seen D&D speak, like you mentioned, and I love the random tables. Do you have any ideas on how to organize them so that they are ready and easy to access on the fly? So, Joseph, if you're going to use random tables and 100 of them, I would suggest using something that has a hyperlink system in place. You want something that has a hyperlink of some kind or has tabs that you can open up. The key to having random tables is having not a huge number of tables, but the tables that you really need. The tables that you think you're going to use the most. Do you know what I mean? So if you're going with like a physical medium, like a folder, then usually you can get like the folder dividers, or you can put like a little a little flag at the top of the page if you've got a physical folder. If you're going digital, then you just need to find a piece of software that allows you to have tabs or hyperlinks and gives you like an index or a contents table down the side, so you can just find, that's what I'm looking for down the side, and you click on. That requires a lot of time. I think the physical folder is going to be easier. Yes, okay. Now, any other tables and resources organization? I have a G drive, and I have been amassing resources that are in no helpful organization currently. I know a lot of people talk about OneNote. I don't really use OneNote. I think you just go find something that's going to work for you that you're familiar with. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what software packages you are familiar with. I don't know what you can use on your computer. So so answering that question. Let's print the dice and sell them. Well, now I believe that AJ Pickett has been trying to convince some Chinese companies to produce stickers that you can peel off and get a print line of whatever you will need, and you put the sticker onto the dice rather than have to have specialized dice printed, which is very expensive. But producing stickers that can go onto a fairly large dice surface is cheap. Producing stickers is very, very cheap. So yeah. Okay, now, what was another technique that we have not covered yet that we should? Let's talk about face cards. Now, I wish I had some sticky notes that I could sort of pull off and stick on the back of this. And I don't think oh yes, I do. Oh no, that's something else. Oh, there we are. That's what I was looking for. Perfect. So let's do this. Let's demonstrate this to you. This is using face cards with an image and sort of determining an NPC on the fly. Okay. So hashtag face cards and post-it notes. Okay. Okay. Yes, stickers do come off, but they are cheap, and you can replace them. That's the thing. You know, if a packet of a sheet of stickers is like $1 or less, it's not a big deal. And yeah. And you can also, when you put stickers on, you can coat them in varnish, and it'll stay in place. Let's do this. This is what we're looking at right now. These are cards. Now, these are like little flags. So if you're doing a physical folder, little flags like this, unless you have folder dividers, these can be quite handy. People use these in pre-printed books to highlight sections for themselves. But what you want is a small post-it note that you can stick on the back of a card, a face card. So let me pull out some of these and show you what I mean. So this is this one. This is this set here. This one is more monstrous. These are sort of dungeon denzians, you might say. All right. And what we'll do is we will create a character, and then you're going to help me with this process. So I'm going to cycle through here. I'm going to find a character that I think is going to help us with this situation. We do tables with numbered lists because it's easy to find numbered dice. Not easy to find custom dice. Yeah. Custom dice are very hard to find for sure. So I want an NPC that we might be able to use here. Something that sort of stands out that we can use in our game for whatever purpose. And I am scrolling through here. It's very much a villain looking face, isn't it? Okay. And we're getting to... Alright. This is... That one. Okay. Alright. She's trouble. We'll leave that one there. Let's have a look at our Dungeon Denzians. I kind of like the rat guy. He's got a bit of an issue, doesn't he? That's a goblin. And I put the sticker tabs in the PHB and the DMG. Yep. These things are very useful. They really are. Okay. All right. So let's start with this character here. Nothing on the back because we haven't done anything. Don't write on the back of the card, even if you're making your own cards, because you want to reuse it. That's the whole point. So what we'll do is we'll get a little sticky post-it note. We stick our post-it note on the back there, and we write on here. So looking at our image, I feel like this is somebody who's sort of a bit devious. Yep. So from the image of this character, what do you think we can sort of determine the character's like? Hashtag. What is the name and nature of the rat character? Character on the card. Okay. That's my question to you. Pissed off. Yeah, he looks pissed off. He definitely does. I'm going to call him Tricky. How's that? Tricky. I feel like that's his name. So one of his definite points is he is pissed off. And from his dress and the way he looks, I almost feel like he's maybe maybe an investigator or maybe a secret agent. I feel like maybe a secret agent would be good. Ready to clean somebody's clock. wants the stuff back and wants it back now. All right, clean a clock. All right, clean someone's clock. Okay, and then we've wants stuff back. Okay, what else have you got here? Makes me think of Warranty Rat from the American Tale. Yeah. So let's say he's a spy. Spy or agent. The hamster is trying to contact someone to make him an exercise wheel. Exercise wheel. Exercise wheel. I don't know where you got that one from, Fred, but it's funny. He has a gangster look. He does. He's a bit of a gangster, isn't he? Gangster. All right. So those are the elements of our character that we have, and we know that it's a rat humanoid. So we've got the information we need. And that's it. That's the whole gist of using face cards, is you find something out of your library. I'm not saying walk around with decks of cards. But what you do is if you've got cards, you select the ones you think you might use during a session as backups, and you have your post-it notes ready to go so that when somebody says, oh, you know that character that we met that you didn't have a name for, and frankly you didn't put much effort into, and we're actually really interested in that one. That's what happens. He is constipated and needs exercise to cure it. There's no place to write down he needs to shit. Okay, all right. But that is the cards. For those of you who are wondering how you go about using the cards and how you use the post-it notes, that's exactly how I go about doing it. And you don't have to worry then about, okay, so if I write it on a piece of paper, who's Tricky, the rat? Because it's attached to the piece of the card. And as long as the sticky post-it note doesn't come off, you've still got it, right? There's your notes. And then if you need to do anything more, you can. But this is a good way of sort of allowing you to, because we did all of that on the fly, right? You could have done that in the middle of a game, easy peasies. And all you're doing is you're using the image to tell the story of the NPC, rather than going the other way around, which is always a bad idea. Always start with the image if you're going to use an image. Okay, start with the image and then build the NPC to the image. Tricky Dicky, exactly, Tricky Dicky. Or even better, Tricky Ricky. My name is Frederick, by the way. So that's another way of incorporating it. So we've done a couple of different techniques today. I haven't had a chance to go over every single one. I'm actually out of time. I have to go. I've got to go to work, and I'll be shift coordinator today, so I cannot afford to be late. But we'll return to improvising in the future, so you don't need to worry if you feel like I didn't cover all the things that I needed to or demonstrate everything. We didn't get a chance to demonstrate how to use a single sheet of paper to do a word brainstorm. I've done that before on these live streams, though. We didn't do a 5-minute map and label it today, which we could have, but they just ran out of time. I haven't shown you ChatGPT or Midjourney. I feel like you can probably handle that yourself. I haven't really explained or demonstrated using plot twist cards and plot points, and we did one example of the Rory story cubes. Yes, no preparation. You really can't demonstrate that very easily in a live stream. I just don't think that's going to work. But hopefully that gave you some idea of some of the techniques that I've been talking about and how to incorporate them into your game. I think that's given you sort of at least a good starting point to begin with. We will return in about 2 months. We'll come back to improvising, and by all means, let's have a look at some of the different other techniques we haven't covered today, and we'll do some demonstrations with them. I'm all for it. Sounds good to me. I took the road less travelled, except in fourth grade. Have a great day. Yes, no, you guys have a good day. Hopefully this is useful to you. And Joseph, if you are still struggling and a little unsure how to organize all of your random tables, use the Discord. If you haven't got a link to the Discord where people can chat, then I'll put it up on Patreon very shortly. It's a new month, so I should be giving people an update as to what's going on Patreon pretty shortly. That should be happening at least at the end of the week. Yeah, if you need it, just let me know. Actually, let's give you the link now. If you haven't got my Discord invite and you're not on my Discord, well, let's just put you there right now. It's not reserved for patrons. I am quite happy to talk to anybody. You just got to bear in mind that I am very busy and sometimes I can't talk to people exactly when they would like to. So let me put the Discord into the chat for those of you who are still here. There is an invite if you want to come and hang out and chat at some point. Anyway, that is it for today. We have covered as much as I possibly can. All the best with your improvising. Do not concern yourself that you may not feel like you're that good at it, because often your assessment of how good you are at something is not what the players think. That's just how it is. Their perspective is a different thing. Anyway, I want to say a big, huge thank you to my patrons who support me on Patreon. Everybody who's been taking part in the poll, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing so. I want to say a huge thank you to Joseph, Fred Huber, and I believe we had. Was there anybody else in here today? It's been a bit quiet today, actually. Maybe just because I've been away for so long, people have forgotten that I exist. No, Michael. That's right, Michael. Stan was here as well, and also Jacob Hope. Hey, thank you for being in the chat and commenting. Even if you're just watching and listening, that's all good. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.